A lot of people have not been happy with the approach of Overwatch 2 in the past several years, myself included, and I figured that this would be a perfect opportunity to talk about why that might be the case, considering that we are about to get some pretty big news for Overwatch 2, or might have already been announced by the time you watch this video. Now, do you know that a lot of people out there that still do love Overwatch 2 can get quite heated or defensive whenever they hear someone talking about Overwatch 2 in a possibly negative light, or when they make comparisons of other games such as Marvel Rivals to Overwatch 2. So I just want to start off with the positives of Overwatch, so it's not like some video bashing Overwatch 2. This is not about bashing Overwatch 2 at all. If anything, this video is more about Blizzard as a company rather than Overwatch 2. I just want to start off by saying that Overwatch has a very special place in my heart and has had a very positive impact on my life because most of my friends, still to this day, like my IRL friends, I met from my Overwatch days. I often think about how if Overwatch didn't exist, then I would not have the friends that I do currently. A lot of them would not be in my life. So Overwatch is something that holds a special place in my heart, and I am forever grateful for them because they let me have these connections that I do right now. And that really is, in my opinion, the magic of Overwatch, because I don't think there is any other game out there currently that did the same thing as Overwatch. Overwatch was so iconic on its release, it made big waves, and there was just something about Overwatch that really fostered a community and friendship that no other competitive game could. I come from League of Legends, and League of Legends just does not compare at all to the amount of community and bonds and friendships that you can create in the prime days of Overwatch in its release. And this is going for all competitive games out there, not just League of Legends. Games like Apex Legends, even Marvel Rivals currently, Counter-Strike, Dota, whatever. I don't think any of these competitive games come close to the magic that Overwatch has created. There was just something so fun about the good old days of Overwatch, and I know you know what I'm talking about if you were someone that played in the early days of Overwatch. Not only was it super fun and accessible to play with your friends, but it was also extremely fun to watch people play Overwatch together as a group. I know that I love watching the Australian YouTubers such as like Loserfruit, Muzak, and all of that. With all the fun moments that you could have with your friends in game and even watching other people play, it was no surprise that so many people were so invested in Overwatch. And I truly think that this was Overwatch's biggest strength, and also what I'm truly grateful for, because again, I would not have the friends that I do currently if not for Overwatch. So please don't take anything I say in this video as me bashing or hating on Overwatch. If anything, this is more about Blizzard, the company, like I said before. And this video is really me analyzing the reason why I believe Overwatch has kind of went on a decline over the past few years. So in my opinion, in which I believe is true, I do believe that the problem with Overwatch, and really Blizzard in general, is that they have a hard time figuring out whether they want to be more of a casual game or a serious competitive type of game. And they sit in the middle trying to appeal to both sides, and it just does not work well. So when I talk about the competitive side, I'm not just talking about purely like Overwatch League or Overwatch Pro players. I'm also talking about solo queue players, people that spend a lot of time grinding it out, sweating it out, and play it at a high level or high elo. And when I'm talking about the casual side, I'm talking about people that don't have a lot of time to play, but they still enjoy Overwatch in their free time. People that maybe do have a lot of time, but you know, they kind of have a more relaxed approach to the game. They're not like fully sweating it out. They're just like playing for fun, maybe by themselves or with friends. You know what I'm talking about with the casual side. Most people will fall under the casual category, and the casual player base is what drives revenue for all these games, not just Overwatch, but for any game out there. And by the way, when I say the casuals, I don't mean it in a derogatory way. I just mean, people that don't take the game as seriously, or they just enjoy the game without wanting to sweat it out or whatever. It's not in a derogatory way at all. So what do I mean about Overwatch, or really Blizzard, sitting in the middle and trying to figure out if they want to be more casual or competitive? What I mean is that Blizzard as a company has very distinct type of design philosophies that can lend itself well to one side but then contradict the other side, and they have many cases of that. For example, a very big marketing tactic that Blizzard employed for Overwatch was that it was a game for everyone, that it had everything that anyone could want in a game. If you were someone that played World of Warcraft or any other MMORPG with the holy trinity of tank, DPS, and support, well, Overwatch has that, so, come right on in. You will fit quite nicely. If you are someone that hasn't played many shooting games and are quite inexperienced with aiming, well, don't worry, because Overwatch has a lot of non-aim characters such as the Ultimacha, Winston, Mercy, and they are very perfect for those type of players, so you don't have to worry, we're a perfect game for you. If you are someone that has played a lot of traditional shooting games in the past, well, don't worry, because we have Soldier 76 and he will fit your playstyle perfectly, and other characters out there. If you want to be a badass tank that leads the front line charging in and protects your team at the same time, well, don't worry, we have Reinhardt for you. He will be perfect for you. This was a very intentional marketing strategy that Blizzard implemented in the game, and it's very smart. Obviously, it makes a lot of sense. You would want a game that can appeal to a lot of people because, like I said, the casual player base is what drives revenue. So a lot of people enthusiastically bought the game and had a lot of fun, but when they hit ranked mode, they quickly realized that one-tricking your favorite characters is not the best way to climb in Overwatch and is actually shunned upon heavily. And that is quite the disconnect from the casual side to the competitive side. I am not saying that it's a bad thing that hero swapping and counter swapping is a thing. I'm not saying that the game should be one-tricking only. I'm just saying and pointing out that this core design philosophy of having a game that appeals to the masses and everyone has a character for them and fits their playstyle, that is a contradiction to the core gameplay that is counter swapping. You can't have both at the same time and appeal to both sides. It's impossible. Now let's go into the competitive side and ask ourselves if the competitive scene is in a good and healthy state. And in my opinion, I think it is not. Now, I know a lot of people are going to get upset with me saying that, but I just want to remind you that me saying these things about Overwatch and Blizzard has nothing to do with your taste or reflects you as a player. If you enjoy Overwatch, more power to you. I'm just analyzing and giving reasoning as to why other people who are frustrated with Overwatch have left the game, myself included. So the biggest problem I have with Overwatch competitive side is its lack of agency in carrying games. Now, if you have played any other competitive games out there, then you would know that Overwatch is a very hard game to solo carry in because it's a game that has such a strong emphasis on teamwork and team play. Now, of course, every single competitive team-based game out there requires a level of teamwork, but Overwatch just takes it up to a whole new level. And this is a very deliberate design choice that Blizzard has made for Overwatch, and not just Overwatch, but for their other MOBA game, Heroes of the Storm. There are a lot of factors that go into a team's success, such as having the right team comps or heroes to counter the enemy team, a lot of coordination with ultimates or even abilities. It's a lot more difficult to answer problems and counters in Overwatch as a solo player. Now, to Overwatch's credit, having this team-based philosophy is what made Overwatch so special and so fun, especially to the casual scene. It is way more fun to have wombo combo moments with your friends in Overwatch than in any other game. I'm sure you've all had your pre-made stacks with your friends and you all play your different characters. It's like, you play Zarya and you're gonna play Pharah and I'm gonna go Mercy, I'm gonna pocket you, we're all gonna do well, and you have these moments like, oh my god, Zarya grab into a Pharah ultimate, and it's just like really fun, chaotic, and just like when you win, it's just like, oh my god, like we did that, like play of the game, oh my god, like you ate that, you did well. It's just like, It's fun. It's extremely fun. And those fun teamwork and wombo combo moments are just not what you would get on the same level with other games out there. However, having such an emphasis and therefore reliance on teamwork in a solo queue environment is not the greatest of things. I'm sure that many of you out there have probably experienced games where you felt like you did the most you could, that you did so much and you felt like you deserved to win. However, your team was just letting you down for various reasons. It could be someone just not playing correctly, maybe they're throwing away the ultimate or whatever. Maybe someone is not playing properly so you are not able to maximize your potential with your wombo combos. It could be for all sorts of various reasons, but my point being is that I'm sure a lot of you have felt that frustration, feeling that you can't carry your games or you don't deserve to be losing some of them. If I were to use myself as an example, in Overwatch 2, I did play quite a lot of tanks because I just enjoyed that more during that time. However, tanks in Overwatch 2 are very reliant on counter swapping, and there's only so much counter swapping you can do as a solo player. Picture this. The enemy team is playing maybe a diva, and to counter that, I pick Zarya. However, the enemy team has an extremely cracked Widow and is destroying my team. And to that, I can only go dive. So I want to switch off Zarya to play dive because dive counters Widow, but there's only so many dive characters that I could pick. Now I could play Winston and dive the Widowmaker, but what if the Widowmaker is getting healed a lot and I just simply do not have the damage to kill her? Not only that, D.Va is still there and D.Va counters Winston. Now I could try go other dive tanks to go counter the Widowmaker, but that means I can't really counter the D.Va. And what if my team is just not dealing with it? What if my team is just getting destroyed by Widowmaker and they refuse to play dive, whether that be because they just don't want to or they don't know how to play dive? What if I have a lot of one-trick players on my team that don't want to swap and are also not performing well? Well, then there's only so much I can do as a tank player that is trying the best to counter swap. Now this seems like a very specific type of example, but these type of moments did happen often for me when I was playing tank. I can give you another example. What if the enemy team has a very cracked Roadhog or Monga, but your supports for some reason refuse to play Ana for the anti-heal? Well, in that case, the game does significantly become much more harder because there's only so many things that can counter Roadhog or Monga as a DPS player or even tank. Yes, I know Junker Queen has an anti-heal, but the only anti-heal that DPS plays is the innate 20% anti-heal that they get from their passive. There is an emphasis on having to rely on your teammates to be able to do their part of their role, which is very frustrating as a solo player, and anyone knows that to have a thriving competitive scene, you need to have solo agency. For a competitive game to thrive, it has to give solo players tools to work around any scenario. Needless to say, to have so little releases of characters in the span of 8 or 9 years of Overwatch is kind of embarrassing, especially for a hero shooter game that relies on counterpicking. Now this is a very deliberate choice of Blizzard because they have stated in the past that there is such thing as too many heroes in a game. Their avoidance to creating new characters is that they do not want the game to get too confusing and also too alienating for people that are returning into the game after a few years of not playing. They do not want people to come back into the game being like, oh my god, there are 20 billion new characters, I am getting overwhelmed. By the way, these are all things that Blizzard devs have said in the past, whether that be in a blog post or on their YouTube channel. This is not me making things up. These are things actually said and stated explicitly by Blizzard devs. So here's the thing, when it comes to the competitive side of Overwatch, you kind of have to counter swap. Unless you're a very cracked one trick, you kind of do have to counter swap to a certain extent in Overwatch. However, there are only so many characters that you can counter swap to, and even less if you were playing many years ago. And these are two core designs of Overwatch that contradict each other. And they don't even help the casual scene either. For the casual player base, having a lot more characters is a good thing because that's what casuals want. They don't really care about having all the try-hard stuff, they just want new characters to have fun with and play. But we don't really have that. Overwatch doesn't really create many characters. So the core design philosophy of not introducing more characters because it might get too confusing or there is such thing as having too many heroes doesn't help the competitive scene, and it also doesn't help the casual scene. So who is that meant to help? And I haven't even talked about how Blizzard wants to keep every character unique and distinct in their visuals and even their gameplay. Blizzard does not want Overwatch to have characters that overlap in their abilities compared to something like Marvel Rivals. In Marvel Rivals, you have characters like Luna Snow, Cloak and Dagger, Mantis, Invisible Woman, and they have all these big AoE healing ultimates, which lets people play different characters in different scenarios. For example, although Luna Snow and Mantis have a big AoE healing ultimate, Mantis is actually more geared towards anti-dive than Luna Snow. Or although the two ultimates are very similar in application and principle, Luna Snow has a lot more single target healing, so she's actually more geared towards healing tanks. There are a lot of characters in Marvel Rivals that overlap with each other, but have enough distinction to warrant playing them in different scenarios. And this lets the player base have control of their gameplay by having lots of different ways to counter their opponents, whilst also staying in the same realm of gameplay that they are comfortable with. It is a very stark difference to Overwatch's approach to their design. In Overwatch, it's a lot more harder to go from one character to another character because they have such distinct, unique playstyles. Just because someone is proficient on Ana doesn't mean that they'll be proficient on Lucio. Someone who is proficient on Lucio doesn't mean that they'll be proficient on Zenyatta. And this type of design just makes counter swapping a lot more difficult because at the end of the day, not everyone is going to be able to play every single character at a peak level. Not only can the majority not play every character at a high level, but not everyone wants to. Like, I understand that counter swapping as a tank player is important, but what if I just want to play Zarya? What if I just want to play the characters I want to play? Well, I can't. I'm gonna suffer for it. It feels exhausting having to feel like I have to learn all these different type of characters just so I can perform well in competitive mode. And so again, these game philosophies that Blizzard implements in Overwatch, and not just Overwatch but their other games as well, they just contradict each other. Blizzard intentionally makes characters very unique, which makes it harder for the competitive side to counter swap because not everyone's going to learn everything. And it also makes the casual side harder because, well, the casuals are not out here trying to learn all these different type of characters. They just want to stick to the characters that they like playing. So who does this benefit? This deliberate choice, this design philosophy. Who does it benefit? And this is just the whole thing about Blizzard in general with the design philosophies. Everything contradicts each other, nothing makes sense, and it bleeds into their other games such as Heroes of Storm, Hearthstone, the card game, and Overwatch. Again, this is not just an Overwatch problem. This affects all their other games as well. I played all their other games. This even leads into my next example of how Blizzard were so reluctant to make patches for the games back in the day. Whether it be for their card game Hearthstone, their MOBA game Heroes of Storm, or their hero shooter Overwatch, Blizzard did not want to change the meta and buff or nerf characters because they wanted their player base to figure it out on their own. These are not my words, by the way. These are the actual words of the Blizzard developers that have admitted and said explicitly that they do not want to change characters, buff, nerf, etc. because the player base would just figure it out. But how is the player base meant to create new strategies and counters with a limited hero pool and limited tools to work with? Blizzard doesn't create new characters and they don't patch the game back in the day, so what are we meant to do? There's a reason why the GOAT meta lasted for so long. For those that don't know, GOAT is 3 tanks and 3 supports. And it wasn't just any 3 tanks and 3 supports, they were very specific characters within that. So it's like Blizzard expects us to build a house with just a hammer and nothing else. For some reason, Blizzard is just so oblivious and unaware that their player base just do not have the tools to deal with anything. And so again, this design philosophy of we don't want to change the game because people will figure out counters and figure it on their own just contradicts everything. It contradicts the competitive side where players not only do not have enough characters to work with and form new strategies, but they're also not having any buffs or patches to change things up. And it also contradicts the casual scene because the casual scene cares more about having constant updates to keep them engaged. Now Blizzard is a lot more better at patching their games nowadays for all their games, so not just for Overwatch, but back in the day it was horrible. We would go for many months without patches. Now there are a lot of other core design philosophies of Blizzard that I can bring up that contradict each other, but the video might get a bit too long, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. If I were to summarize everything I've said, Blizzard tries to appeal to both the casual and competitive sides simultaneously, but the thing is, that is just simply impossible. You cannot please both the casual side and competitive side. You really just have to go all out on one side, or at the very least lean into one side more than the other. If you want to appeal to the competitive player base, then do that. Introduce new characters, create new tools for the player base to have more solo agency in their game so they can solo carry more. Maybe introduce a talent system. I am hoping that the big news that we are getting for Overwatch is a talent system. I know people will find it confusing, which is only going to be confusing for the casual side, but it would be very good for the competitive side because having talents that let you change up your character will let them be more malleable and more fitting in different scenarios. Imagine if you could give Symmetra extra range on her beam. She can now suddenly handle Pharah a little bit more better rather than being fully countered by Pharah. Or imagine if Roadhog could have a talent where he could reduce the effects of anti-healing so he is not so reliant on having to swap off when he is versing an Ana, or reliant on his team to pick Kiriko, because what if your team doesn't pick Kiriko? Give your players more tools to solo carry if you want a thriving competitive scene. Now I know a lot of people who are watching this might have their own reasons as to why that they stopped playing the game, whether it be because they were finding that the prices were too much, or maybe that they were excited for PvE but they felt lied to because it got shut down. Whatever your reasoning is, I just want you to ask yourself this. With everything that is in Overwatch right now and every new thing that Blizzard introduces into Overwatch, I want you to ask yourself, who does this benefit? Having no talent system? Who does that benefit? Having one hero released every 3 to 4 months? Who does that benefit? Only having around like 40 something characters in the game after 8 to 9 years? Who does that benefit? Having skins cost so much in Overwatch, who does that benefit? Having a battle pass system that requires so many hours of gameplay to reach the skins that you want, who does that benefit? Having a 20% increase in XP only when you buy the battle pass, who does that benefit? For the last few of them, they do not benefit their player base at all, by the way. They do not benefit the casual or competitive side. They just benefit Blizzard and their wallets. So I want you to look at everything in Overwatch objectively and be able to see that Overwatch could be more than it is currently. It could be way more. It has so much potential. It has so much more potential to be a better casual game, and it has so much more potential to be a better competitive game. I'm not saying that it's bad to be a casual game or that it's bad to be a competitive game. I'm saying that Blizzard just needs to lean to one side more heavily and stick with it. So yeah, this is a very long talking video on why I believe Overwatch has had a decline over its years and why it has left many people frustrated with the game. I feel like most, if not all, frustrations with Overwatch and Blizzard can be categorized in the casual or competitive box. I just wanted to end this by saying that Overwatch does hold a very special place in my heart, and I am forever grateful and thankful for Overwatch's existence and Blizzard for creating the game. I have had so many amazing moments with Overwatch and created so many long-lasting friends because of Overwatch, and so because of that, I do not want to bash the game. but also I am very upset that the game is the way it is, and I wish more of it. I wish the game could be better. I wish I could enjoy the game more and I could love it again like I used to. And again, as a reminder, for those that do still play Overwatch and love the game still, more power to you, okay? None of the things that I have said in this video reflect your taste. It is not an attack on your gaming preferences or whatever. This is just me analyzing and creating reasons as to why a lot of people out there, myself included, have been frustrated with Overwatch for the past several years. I hope the big news that Overwatch has coming up is amazing and somehow revives the game, and I hope that a lot of people come back to the game, myself included, to enjoy it and love the game again once more.